Next on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We had a rule in our family that we never clear more than 60% of our land.
How a Florida family is contributing to both the cattle industry and the environment. Plus, learn how to work with your veterinarian to improve horse health.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with your host, Susie Ross.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Susie Ross. Trade issues headline our cattle industry news this week. NCBA is opposing USDA's proposal to loosen restrictions on livestock and meat imports from the Patagonia South region of Argentina. This region produces more sheep than cattle and has little problem with foot and mouth disease. However, the same cannot be said for neighboring South American countries. Because of these animal health concerns, NCBA says tighter border controls are needed before a wider range of imports can be accepted into the U.S. from Patagonia. A panel for the World Organization for Animal Health, also known as OIE, is recommending a new BSE classification for the United States. This potential upgrade is based on the enhanced BSE surveillance program. It found only 2 native cases out of almost 800,000 cattle tested over the past 3 years. The final decision by OIE is expected in May. Cattlemen say it could help the United States' efforts to rebuild beef export market share across the world. Trade issues are critical to cattlemen's profitability. Variety meats command a much better price in foreign countries, and demand is also growing in many overseas markets for prime and choice cuts. We have more in this week's Market Watch. Joining us to discuss beef exports is Phil Seng, CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Welcome, Phil.
Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. You know, we hear a lot about the frustration we're facing in the Asian markets. But across the world, there's actually a lot of good news out there about beef exports, right?
That's right. This year, our exports eclipsed $2 billion. We were up basically 35% in total exports, so that's a significant increase from where we were, and especially where we were in 2004 after, of course, the first case of BSE. But I think that the real success story, of course, is Mexico, where we're up about 27% this year alone, and we're looking at maybe exporting close to 400,000 metric tons. So Mexico has been a true performer for us, and they stepped out first before any other countries to open their market, and I think they've really distinguished themselves as far as buying the product. When we go to the Asian theater, especially if you take a look at Japan, there's been a lot of frustrations with Japan. Of course, they're excruciating as far as their detail and what they want, but nonetheless, we have really 2 major obstacles right now. One is the 100% box testing of product being imported. They check every single box. I think the second thing would be the 21 and 23 months cases of BSE that are being called into question now in Japan, but because of that, they've imposed a 20-month break as far as our cattle. Anything over 20 months cannot be shipped to Japan, which limits us quite dramatically. So we're exporting about 2,500 metric tons a month, but we look to increase this to 5,000 metric tons the last half of this year, and hopefully get close to about 60,000 metric tons in that market this year. When we look at Korea, we're looking at a very difficult situation in Korea. But we are expecting in the near term to see access in that market, which would be meaningful. And we're expecting the Koreans at some point in time here in this year to move to full bone-in access, which is 60% of our exports. And that'll be a big impetus to this industry. So we're looking at 2007 as being a very, very good year for the beef industry.
So for cattlemen, this is really good news.
It's very good news. Obviously, when you can eclipse $2 billion, it's tremendous, and of course we think the outlook, especially this year, and of course as we go into the future years, it's going to be very promising for producers.
That's fantastic. I'd like to end on a good note here. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
My pleasure.
We look forward to having you back in the future. For more information on beef exports and the U.S. MEF, go to cattlementocattlemen.org. In this week's Cattlemen's Capital Concerns, we're taking a look at the food pyramid. The pyramid got a makeover in 2005 and is now called My Pyramid. Cattlemen to Cattlemen's Jim Witt explains how My Pyramid is playing an important role in setting the course for Americans' diets and how beef fits in.
Every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture re-examines the elements that make up the U.S. dietary guidance. My Pyramid is a graphic depiction of those recommendations. Eric Hinches, with the Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion, says, "The beef checkoff has played an important role in building the scientific database about beef and nutrition."
I think it's been very helpful and very important, the use that cattlemen have made of their checkoff in increasing the database knowledge used by USDA, in supporting the nutrition efforts. I think this has been very helpful. Not only do we have the leaner cuts available, it is reflected in our data, and then we can put that into our education materials.
And those 29 lean beef cuts are integral in providing a healthy, nutrient-dense food source to America's ever-changing population.
In today's environment, with our overweight and obesity problems that we have, the advice has got to be get the most nutrients for your calories.
At the USDA's My Pyramid website, consumers can get an up-close look at the guide and get a tailor-made plan on how many calories to eat each day, based on age and activity level.
This is always a challenge. We've got good science, we've got good policy. How do you implement and communicate that and get the action? And this has always been the biggest challenge. We have a lot of traditional partners. We have University Extension Service, we have professional groups like American Dietetics Association, many of the public health groups carry this out. And so there's those traditional partners.
Henches says cattlemen play an important role in this partnership by producing the best beef they can for Americans' diet. This is Jim Witt for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
For more on MyPyramid, head to the website mypyramid.gov. Ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, an annual wellness exam is critical for a horse's health. We'll walk through the steps. But first, here's a look at this week's market summary provided by CattleFax.
In 1874, an innovation changed the beef industry forever. It was called barbed wire, and it brought an end to open-range grazing and began a whole new era of cattle management. Today, there's another breakthrough innovation changing the beef industry. It's called Draxxin, and it's one more way Pfizer Animal Health is working with veterinarians and cattlemen to open up a whole new era in animal health. To learn more about Draxxin, talk to your veterinarian.
Purina's wind and rain minerals are research tested and field proven to provide balanced mineral nutrition essential for cattle health, growth, and reproduction. They're highly palatable so cattle consume what they need when they need it. And wind and rain mineral special formulation resists the elements so they won't blow out of the feeder and maintain their palatability even if they've been wet. Wind and rain cattle minerals from Purina Mills, building better cattle.
There ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Canine Advantix is the one that repels and kills disease-spreading fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. Frontline Plus doesn't repel and isn't effective against mosquitoes. So ask your veterinarian for Canine Advantix, the one that repels and kills.
Yeah, there may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Cattlemen often joke that if a cow is going to have trouble calving, she'll wait until the coldest, darkest night to do so. But this isn't a joke. According to Oklahoma State and other research universities, you can influence when she calves by when you feed her. They've documented that feeding cows in the late afternoon or early evening actually increases the chance they'll calve during daylight hours. Granted, feeding the whole herd at this time may be tough, but if you at least wait until the end of the day to feed those first calf heifers, you increase the chance that those most prone to needing help will calve in daylight, when good help is nearby and wide awake. Visit cattlementocattlemen.org for more on this week's Management Minute.
Welcome back to Cattlemen to Cattlemen. This week, the Cattle Learning Center is taking a look at horse health, thanks to the American Quarter Horse Association. Jeff Metters from America's Horse Television and Dr. Tom Lenz from Fort Dodge Animal Health show us how to properly conduct a horse wellness exam.
Well, we kind of start on the outside of the horse with the horse's hair coat. We want to make sure that it's shiny, that it looks healthy, that it's the right length for the time of the year. It's summertime now, so it should be short. We want to look for any bumps or scars or lesions or areas where there's hair loss. Areas we want to pay a lot of attention to are the underbelly, because that's where a lot of flies like to work, and sometimes we get skin tumors there. The mane area, some of the flies work this area, as well as ticks, and also the tail head tends to be a favorite place for ticks, and so we want to pay particular attention to those parts of the horse's skin.
Now, when you go to the doctor, they're going to check your temperature. Same here,
Right?
isn't it?
Same thing. That's a simple thing to do. We can just use a common digital thermometer that you can buy at any drugstore. We want to lubricate it and then insert it into the rectum and leave it in the rectum for about 3 minutes and then take it out and read it. Normal temperature in a horse is 100.5. In foals, it's 101.5, so they're a little bit higher. Make sure you stand at the side of the horse when you do this if you haven't done it before, and don't stand behind the horse because some of them resist it. A horse has a fairly large heart. The best place to listen to a heart is on this side, right behind the left elbow and a little above. And of course, the best way to do that's with a stethoscope like this. Horse's normal heart rate, resting heart rate, is around 30 to 40 beats per minute. We want to listen to the heart. It'll make a lub-dub sound, and that sound is the valves opening and closing. So we want to make sure that they're consistent and a normal rhythm. We worry about horses that have an extremely elevated heart rate, because that's a good indication that there's some pain or something, or if they have a asynchronous heart rate where the heart beats and then skips a few beats and then beats again.
And in conjunction with the heart, you're also going to pay close attention to the lungs.
Right. Horses have a large lung field. The normal respiration rate in a horse is anywhere between 8 and 16 breaths per minute, depending on the horse and their size. And so we can listen anywhere on the horse's thorax, or we can listen on the trachea and just count the beats. The best way to do that is to look at your watch, listen and count the beats for 15 seconds, then multiply by 4. You can also just stand here and watch the horse's rib cage expand and contract and do it that way without a stethoscope. And so you can hear the air moving through the horse's lungs, but we don't want to hear whistles or crackles, which may indicate some serious problems.
Now, how about the abdomen?
Abdomen's very important in the horse because they're prone to colic. The best place, there's 4 quadrants, an upper and lower on each side. We want to listen to each of those. The gut sounds are not so important what sound you hear, but whether you hear sound. If you hear nothing, that's really a bad sign. And so when you listen to the normal horse's abdomen, it's going to sound like distant thunder as the intestines move, or you may hear some gurgling. But the big problem arises when you hear nothing.
Let's start with posture. What can you learn about a horse's posture?
Well, when we look at horses initially, we want to see that they're balanced, that they stand up on their legs okay, that they're not droopy, they don't have a low back, that they move freely, and don't have any obvious lesions or any problems that catch your eye right off the bat.
What does posture tell you about the horse?
Well, we want to look at the horse's posture and make sure it's balanced, it's standing firm in all 4 legs, there's no obvious swelling or defect anywhere in the horse's body, the horse is balanced and symmetrical from the front and rear as well as the side. It's then also a good idea to run your hands over the horse's legs to make sure there's no obvious bumps or swellings that you need to be concerned about. I like to flex the leg and palpate the tendons relaxed, and then also flex it up to make sure the horse is flexible and there's no pain when you flex the joint or any swelling here. Then we want to walk the horse off backwards and then bring it back toward us, and then maybe even trot the horse depending on the situation.
Proper vaccination is another critical component in your horse's health. Ahead in the second part of this week's Cattle Learning Center, Dr. Lenz explains how to make sure your horse is properly protected.
West Nile virus is still a deadly threat for virtually every horse in America. Protect your champion with West Nile Innovator, the original West Nile virus vaccine. West Nile Innovator has been proven safe and effective, with more than 20 million doses administered coast to coast. Ask your veterinarian for West Nile Innovator today from Fort Dodge Animal Health, the official vaccines of the American Quarter Horse Association.
From fresh tomatoes to potatoes and chicken to beef, we're as picky about our quality ingredients as you are. Because that That's what we're made of.
Welcome back. Let's head back out to Dr. Lenz and Jeff Metters for the final steps to a proper equine wellness exam.
Well, we want to check the horse's teeth at least twice a year, and what I usually do is just do a manual examination to feel for sharp points, because horses' teeth grow their entire life and they'll develop sharp points. In the upper arcade, that tends to be along the cheek, and the lower arcade along the tongue. And so if we feel those, we're going to do a process called floating, which is where we go in there with a file and file the teeth down so they fit properly and they don't cause any pain when the horse chews.
Lymph nodes also on the checklist.
Right, lymph nodes are scattered throughout the horse's body. Lymphatic fluid flows through that and helps fight infection. So they will swell up or get enlarged when the horse has an infection. So we want to palpate between the jaw bones to make sure there's no enlarged lymph nodes there that might indicate early strangles or respiratory infection. And also lymph nodes on the point of the shoulder are a good place to check.
And also, and it makes perfect sense, you don't want to overlook it, an eye exam for your horse.
Eye exams are really important. Horses are prey animals, so they have a nice big eye that's on the side of their face. And so we want to make sure their eyes are bright and alert, there's no discharge, that the conjunctiva, which is the lining of the eyelids, is not enlarged or red or inflamed. When eyes become inflamed or infected, they tend to turn white, and so we want to make sure there's no white areas in the eyeball. And also horses, if they do have an eye infection or an injury, will tend to keep their eye closed and try to avoid sunlight. So we want to make sure the eyes are wide open and bright and alert. There are several vaccinations that every horse should receive at least annually, and those are tetanus, Eastern and Western sleeping sickness, and West Nile virus. And then depending on what the horse does for a living, you vary the vaccination program with the time of the year and the geographic location where the horse lives.
Well, the AAEP recommends that you have a wellness examination for your horse at least twice a year, every spring and every fall, to help detect, prevent, and treat small problems before they become serious problems.
To check your horse's health, contact your local veterinarian to set up a wellness exam or head to cattlemen2cattlemen.org for more information. Ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, how a Florida family is contributing to both the cattle industry and the environment.
Agriculture is a small portion of the population now, and if we're not working together, we're not going to get anywhere.
As our family, we cannot be in Washington, D.C. all the time, and I just couldn't live without NCBA representing.
They're looking out for our interests. They're there fighting for us every day.
If you got 1 cow or 2 cows or 100 cows, you need to be a member.
I'm a member of the NCBA because a long time ago, 35 years ago, I felt that I needed to know more of what my industry is doing. So I got started at the county level. If you're in the cattle industry, now's the time to join and let your voice be heard loud and clear.
You need NCBA working for you, and NCBA needs you. It's easy to join. Just call, get online, or talk with your state affiliate and sign up today.
I'm a Pennsylvania cattle producer, and you're watching NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
If you ever head to Lake Wales, Florida, you'll find an amazing family-run operation. The Lightsey family was the winner of the 2005 Environmental Stewardship Award for their outstanding contributions. Let's take a look.
Welcome to the Lightsey Cattle Company, where Lane and Charlotte, Carrie and Marcia Lightsey, and their families work to keep Florida ranching through stewardship alive for future generations. Located in south central Florida, Lightsey Cattle Company is a sweeping operation that includes 3 separate ranches in 3 separate counties. Since 1858, the Lightsey family has reigned as guardian over the vast open lands of central Florida. But times are changing. The population in Florida is literally exploding. Development is everywhere, and Florida is losing 500 acres a day to development.
You know, we have a vision that 100 years from now, all of our land's still cow land, and the Lightsey family's still here operating it.
The diversity of enterprises like citrus, guided hunting, timber, ecological tours, and of course their cow-calf operation all rely on good management and respect for the environment in order to thrive and profit.
My dad kept this land, and his dad kept the land, and all the other generations kept the land where we could do what we're doing. I respect the generations I don't even know right now to leave this for them. And really that's my philosophy from my heart.
Over at their XL Ranch in Highlands County, a 580-acre reservoir that was dammed up in the 1960s by a previous owner is being restored as part of a program to improve wetlands and wildlife habitat in this water basin.
The Nature Conservancy contacted us, and they wanted to start a new program called the Flow Project.
This project restores water levels back to season norms, and the native vegetation is returning.
This is Boot Hill Creek. It discharges into Fish Eating Creek, which in turn discharges into Lake Okeechobee, that's all part of the Everglades system. The goal here is to improve water quality.
As a way of slowing development and ensuring that the land stays open for future generations, the Lightseas have committed large sections of their land to conservation easements.
The conservation easements that we have is a win-win for us. It's given us a chance to preserve our land here in Florida. We get anywhere from 40 to 80% of the appraised value on the property. And you know, our property in Florida is getting high. You know, we do have a fair amount of money coming in. The restriction on these easements is up to the rancher. We have ours set up where we continue doing what we did before. We just can't put homes on our land. We know down deep inside that this land's going to stay just like it is from now on.
It's a hot real estate market, but the Lightseas are invested not only in the conservation and resources, but the history of the state at a time when a lot of other ranchers aren't.
Leaving much of their land unimproved has allowed the Lightseas to generate substantial income from hunting, camping, and ecological tours. These environmentally friendly businesses have also allowed wildlife to thrive naturally. Brahma Island has 14 eagles' nests. Eagle eggs have been harvested, hatched, and sent to states that lost their population. 25 gopher tortoises have been relocated to their ranch to help save this endangered species.
We had a rule in our family that we never clear more than 60% of our land. And I think that's why we have so many endangered species and so many eagles. We've left that in habitats for them, and they've lost it somewhere else, and they've come to our land.
The Lightseas have found a way to combine the interests of the environment with their own need to sustain profitability. In an operation that covers over 30,000 acres in 3 counties, this is no easy chore.
You wish your dad could see you the other day. You just said that.
Yeah. My father died 32 years ago. I was a young man of 23 at the time. And I wished he could come back and just ride with me for one day and look at what we have done. He would enjoy seeing the cattle we have, you know, the pastures we've improved. But at the same time, how we've left part of Florida like it was meant to be. You know, if every time we clear an acre, we try to leave 2 or 3 in its native state. I'm proud of that.
The 2007 ESAP Award nominations are due this month. For more information, head to beefusa.org/ESAP. We are so enjoying the pictures we've received from around the country for our Legacy Photos section. Let's take a look. Send us pictures of your family and operation. Head to our website at cattlemen2cattlemen.org. Next week, we'll have a discussion about a USDA report on alternative marketing agreements. Plus, we'll take a look at the importance of estate planning and the week's news and market headlines. Thanks for joining us on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Be sure to tune in next week. A new episode airs every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on RFD TV.